Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cisco Optics podcast, where we talk about pluggable optics for networks. Coherent optics have been the go-to solution for high-end optical transport systems for years. Eventually, these optics were modularized, and with recent advances in DSP design and optics manufacturing, this technology is now available in small, form-factor pluggable modules. In March of 2021, Cisco recognized the importance of this technology and acquired the industry's leader by far in this space, Acacia Communications. This is episode 20, and we start a new conversation with Tom Williams. Tom joined Cisco through the Acacia acquisition in 2021, and we begin our conversation with Tom's background and the types of problems they solved at Acacia. Tom leads marketing efforts for the Acacia Coherent Optics team that was acquired by Cisco in March 2021. Tom has spent over 20 years developing optical transmission equipment ranging from 10 gig to 1.2 terabit. He participates in a variety of coherent standardization activities in OIF, IEEE, and OpenROADM, and is co-chair of the OpenZR Plus MSA. Tom spent nearly 15 years in various management roles at Optium, where he participated in the company's 2006 IPO and 2008 acquisition by Finisar. Tom joined Acacia in 2015, where his role has included corporate and product marketing responsibility, as well as contributing to product roadmap definitions. And, as of last year, I can call him a colleague at Cisco. Please follow us on Apple Podcast or subscribe on whatever podcasting platform you use. We're actually part of the Cisco Podcast Network. Check out our blog at blogs.cisco.com and search on hashtag Cisco Optics blog, all one word, no hyphen and no spaces. You'll find podcast episode notes with timestamps there. For our YouTube playlist, go to youtube.com and search on Cisco Optics. And for product information, go to cisco.com/go/optics. And now, join me as I talk with Tom Williams. So why don't we start with just, can you tell us about your career path and how you ended up at Cisco?
Sure. So I guess really I got into the industry back in 2001 when I came to what was then Optium as a startup. I had been doing tech support at Lucent and moved to Optium in a applications engineering role. Migrated from there to PLM, kind of the startup mentality, lots of opportunity, everybody working really hard, and building that from the ground up, and some crazy days and a lot of fun along the way. So
what was Optium's main product?
Optium was doing 10 gig transceivers, so that was back in the 300 pin 10 gig transceiver days when they were first kind of being introduced. And probably our flagship product was when tunable DWDM, when tunable lasers first came out and tunable transponders and transceivers first became available. We did pretty well in that market. We always were a bit more on the high performance side, and we had client interfaces, but our strength was always really on the higher performance side of the market. So
this was 300 pins, so it's not pluggable. These were meant to be soldered onto PC boards.
That's right. Board mounted. Well, it was a connectorized, but it was board mounted, so it was sat inside the line card with pigtails coming out to the faceplate. And so we kind of went from there. Going from 5 by 7 inch modules, then that migrated to 2.2 by 3 inch modules, and then ultimately went from 300 pin board mounted to faceplate pluggable XFPs, which migrated to SFP Plus and that whole process. So, we sort of got established in the 300 pin market. Optium actually IPO'd in 2007. Let's test my memory now. I think 2006, I guess it was.
Okay.
So I think we're all really proud of that achievement in that time frame after the bubble burst and everything. And IPO in optics was pretty special.
So that's only
and then ultimately
like 5 years after the bubble burst, then basically.
Yeah. We were, and we started, like, I went there in 2001, right? So we started really as the bubble was bursting, and was an odd market situation because while a lot of the established players were going through lots of cuts because they had scaled up to what was a super fast growing market and
Hmm.
had to cut back and were killing product lines, and there was going through all kinds of difficult process of shrinking. We were already small, and so we started off with grand illusions of growing to be $1 billion company in a year or two, and quickly had to readjust our
Hmm.
sights and realize that we had to sort of hunker down and make our way through. But because we were small, because we were able to grow as the market started to recover, and we were able to live on smaller levels of business, in some respects it was a benefit for us.
Oh, nice. So you had a very different experience, I think, from most people in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, compared to a lot of people, I sort of got in after, I missed the big wave, right? So
Mm.
I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of people who made a lot of money during the bubble, and I was sort of a little bit late for that. And sort of I started as coming out of the bubble and rebuilding from there. So it's been a 20-year process and everything, but it's been fun along the way.
Yeah, I mean, money's great, obviously, but I mean, you still have to go to work every day, right? And you got to enjoy what you're doing.
Well, and that was what was really strange, right? Because in this space, you'd walk around in 2001 and 2002, and people would say, "Oh, you're at a startup. That's crazy in this time
Hmm.
frame." But I actually felt more job security at the startup because, again, we were already small. We weren't sized for a market that was supposed to be an order of magnitude bigger than what it was. So in some respects, we were better suited to the market than a lot of other places in the industry at the time.
That's really awesome. So where did you go after that then?
So Optium got acquired by Finisar, and so again, I'm going to test my memory, 2008, I guess it was. We became a part of Finisar, and so I was at Finisar then until 2015 when I joined Acacia. So essentially, I was at doing in the same organization for 15 years there.
Now, by that time, I I know that Optium had gotten into the ROADM business at some point, right?
Yeah, in
Were you involved with
between
that, or still doing transceivers?
Yeah, so in between, in 2006 we IPO'd, in 2007 we bought in Ghana, which was the Rotem business in Sydney, and and got into that piece of the business.
Okay. And did you get involved with that, or was that separate?
A little bit. So I went through a phase. I ran PLM through 2000, around 2008 timeframe, I guess. And then for a period of time, I did a bunch of other roles, and some of those roles were managing customer engagements on some ROTM or line cards that had ROTMs on them. So I was never directly involved in the ROTM design or PLM of the ROTM itself, but I was involved in a few customer engagements with ROTM line cards at a few different customers.
Okay, great. And so you said uh, you were at Finisar until when again? Sorry.
2015. So after
Okay.
doing a few of those other roles, I guess it was about 2012, 2011 or 12, something like that. As Coherent was starting to become, obvious that that was the direction where optical transport was going to be going. Uh, I moved back into a PLM role, managing kind of 100 gig and above transport at Finisar. So all of the Coherent products, as well as Finisar had a direct detect dual binary product that was 100 gig, and I managed that as well. So kind of the high speed transport portion of Finisar I managed as PLM.
Okay. So it sounds like you started in uh, basically technical slash marketing roles, eventually being a PLM, but all kind of in the transport space. Is that correct?
Yeah, some of the early Optium, I mean, we had, 10-kilometer LR type products and everything, but more so in a 300 pin XFP. When we became a part of Finisar, the Optium products in that space were discontinued, and we migrated over. Finisar was much better
Mm,
at the client optics. Optium's strength really was on the transport side of things.
I see. So tell me more about Acacia now. What made you decide to go there? You touched upon it a little bit with dual binary, some modulation, but what about the company attracted you?
So yeah, I mean, it was certainly at a time. I mean, I wasn't really. It's always the best time, you know. It's always best when you're not looking for something and the opportunities come up, and somebody really you look and say, hey, that is actually a place I would consider. And Acacia by that time had, you know, really established some market traction and, you know, demonstrated their capabilities with not only the original 100 gig you know 5x7 footprint, but also the CFP, you know, pluggable. Acacia was really the only vendor in the market that was shipping 100 gig CFP, and you know, it was really pretty clear that they were you know successful in the market and had something pretty special. Um, I actually, it was interesting. I really the only person I knew at Acacia going into it was Merdad Gavechi, who was a founder of Acacia and participated in LIF, and so I knew Merdad. Didn't actually know a lot of other people. When I got here, I realized there was a lot more people that I had come across in the industry, and you know that were actually here, and I hadn't realized it before. So it was interesting when I got here and started looking around how many familiar faces there actually were. Um, but you know, it definitely was a company who had a unique set of technology, and you know, the more I started trying to, you know, to dig in and learn more about the company, you know, I think a company like that has some initial success, you're always trying to say, okay, well, did they just hit a lucky product, or is this something that's sustainable, right? Do they have something that they can, you know, it's is it the process or is it the product? And the more I started digging, the more I became convinced, yeah, it is the process. There's something here that is sustainable and, you know, can continue to innovate and be a leader. And so that became really interesting. And it was great to see someone, you know, I didn't come from a system background, and at that time in the market, a lot of the coherent products were, you know, being developed by the system vendors. Acacia was somewhat unique in being and having DSP capabilities and being a merchant module vendor. And it was a great opportunity for me to kind of come in with my background in the module space, but also somebody who was really focused on the transport market that was, you know, where my expertise was. And so it just really felt like a great fit. And, you know, all the people that I talked to and everything, I really felt a great connection, felt like we saw things in a similar way and everything. It just really felt like a good fit, and decided to go for it.
I think you bring up a really good point. A little bit earlier, you mentioned whether it's is it did they just get lucky with the product, or is it the process that's really solid? And I remember um, my thesis advisor repeated something that he heard, and he said it's so true. If you're going to go to a startup, don't build a product, build an organization. And it's something I always remembered. The hard part, though, sometimes is how can you tell, right? So how did you know? Like, I'd imagine after meeting the people, maybe you had a feeling, but was there anything in particular that made you think, okay, now I know that this is the organization and not the product. This this has this team has staying power. What was there anything that comes? Is there anything that comes to mind?
I I think you can only know so much before you join, you know, and I say that probably with more confidence today, having lived through the last, you know, 6 years and you know, having more confidence in it and realizing, you know, I think when you take that leap, there's always still probably a little bit of you know, uncertainty in your mind. So when I actually got here and you know, got to see things from the inside and everything, I think that rebuilt, you know, built even more confidence. But you know, I think you could certainly tell. I think a combination once you start. talking to people, once you start thinking about it, you start saying, okay, well, who do I know who knows some of these people? Who do I, how
Mm.
do I find out more about it? And everything really pointed to, the same answer. I think when you look at the approach that they had and the capabilities that they had across the DSP capability as well as the optics, they really had a unique way of trying to solve problems. Um, and it resonated with me, right? It seemed like uh, they really had a technology advantage that would make it sustainable, right? That it wasn't just kind of that they happened to put the right product together, but they actually were investing in technology that would be differentiating and would be something they could maintain. Um,
So,
I
so when you say they're
go ahead.
solving problems, do you mean purely technical problems, or was there a certain amount of business problem to be solved as well?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I think one of the things that, Acacia has used as a sort of a tagline is this siliconization of optical interconnect. So it's a big bet on
Mm.
silicon. And that really is in two different ways, right? In one perspective, it's using silicon in the context of a DSP to solve problems in the optical domain, right? So at these higher speeds, impairments become more and more of a challenge, and just solving them with pure optics becomes more difficult. And so now you have signal processing power that you're able to utilize to overcome the impairments. And so it's a move toward doing more in silicon and not just brute force optical solutions, but then also the investment in silicon photonics. And, through, what I had learned in, my previous role and some of the commercials and everything, I think the challenge at the time when Chris Storer and the Acacia team did the silicon photonics for Coherent, most people were just thinking of silicon photonics as a client optics solution, right? They weren't really thinking about it as a coherent solution, and so there was a lot of skepticism, and myself included, before I really saw that, hey, this is actually working, right? They're actually pulling off what they claimed, and able to do this. And so that does sort of reinforce the view that this really is something. It's something special from a technology capability, but it's also solving the right commercial problem, right? So, and that's the section you're looking for, right? Having a unique set of technology capabilities, but actually having those be applicable to solving a problem that the market needs addressed,
Right,
right? It's not
right.
it's not a solution looking for a problem. It is actually the right solution for the problem at hand, and so everything seemed to fit.
Yeah, I- I'm guessing that you may have seen a lot of the startups from the 90s basically having a solution, and their approach is build it and they will come, and then nobody ever came. So what you're describing sounds more like, hey, there's a specific problem, there's an actual need, a demand, and we know exactly how to solve that with a certain technological approach. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I think it really is. And again, building there's so much that you research what you can, you see what you can from the out, but then once getting inside and actually working with people and everything, and the more I got to understand the team and the capabilities, it really reinforced it. So I probably feel more strongly about that today looking backward than maybe I was confident of it at the time. I'd like to think that was so insightful that I knew that this was going to happen, or that it would be the way it is. But fortunately, I had enough confidence to go forward with it.
Well, it sounds like you had a good instinct, definitely.
Yeah, no, and a lot of that, I think, when you go through a process like that, you've got to sort of believe in the people that you meet, right? And
Hmm.
you're you've got to have a sense of whether those people are you know truthful and trustworthy, you know, and are going to do what they say, and that you have confidence in their capabilities and everything. And I just got all the right reads from all the people that I met with.
Great. So you mentioned both silicon and silicon.
That was the first part of my conversation with Tom Williams. Next time, we'll get into Acacia's approach to components and packaging. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, or subscribe on whatever podcasting platform you use. You may see Cisco Podcast Network come up when you search for Cisco Optics Podcast. That's where we live, and you can find other great podcasts there too. And we'd really appreciate you helping to get the word out. Share this with friends and colleagues that come to mind when you think of network technology and optics. Also, check out the Cisco Optics blogs at blogs.cisco.com and search on hashtag Cisco Optics blog, no spaces and no hyphens. We also have this podcast and educational videos on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and search on Cisco Optics. Thank you for listening. This is Pat Chow, Product Manager at Cisco Optics. The next episode is part 2 of my conversation with Tom Williams. Until next time.